Hello, Raptors fans, and welcome back to Raptors Report. I am doing the long-form content that you came to expect last season, where I drop a new video after every Toronto Raptors game, and I'm going to be doing it this preseason, so there is a ton of content coming your way. So make sure to hit the subscribe button. Make sure that you hit the bell icon so that it pops up in your feed and in your notifications every time I drop a new video. That will be really helpful if you want to keep up with the Raptors. This is the spot where you can make sure that you are staying on the ball with all things Raptors. So very excited to get back into this. I loved doing it last season, and the response was, really positive, really helped grow the channel. And you guys have been really, supportive of me. So I really appreciate that. Just want to mention really quickly that there are no ads, but there is a Patreon. So if you guys want to, grab me a cup of coffee, there's a link in the description. You can become a Patreon supporter if you'd like. Now, we got to talk about the Toronto Raptors because they played their first preseason game last night against the Denver Nuggets, and we will be getting around to that game where I discuss the players who played, the game as a whole, all of that good stuff. But before we do that, I want to get into the expectations for this team, because I think that the expectations for this team are a lot different. They have changed substantially. This is the third year of Darko Rajakovic's tenure as head coach of the Toronto Raptors. So let's take a look back at what has transpired since he became head coach. So in his first season, he was taking over the reins from Nick Nurse, who was let go at the end of the previous season. And also, Fred VanVleet had left the team in free agency to go to the Houston Rockets, who gave him a huge bag. And the Toronto Raptors basically said, yeah, we're not doing that. And they decided basically to do kind of like a half rebuild. And so Darko Rajakovic inherited a couple of players, good players, no doubt about it. Jakob Poeltl, OG Anunoby, Pascal Siakam. And Dennis Schroeder was the lead point guard, the starting point guard for that team, and things just never really materialized. I think that there were issues implementing his system with the existing personnel, and it was his first year in the league, and the team just never looked right. I thought their defense would be a lot better. I thought that they would get it done on offense a little bit better than they were. The bench was still, ramshackle, very poor, and so they decided to blow it up. And at the trade deadline, they moved Siakam and OG for a bunch of different pieces. They kept Poeltl on, and thankfully they did, because he's been and will be a pretty substantial piece for the Toronto Raptors moving forward. In the second year of Darko's tenure, it was just a full rebuild from the get-go. I mean, you just had to ask Jakob Poeltl, and he said, really, we don't have a lot of aspirations this season. It's basically going to be a rebuild, and, don't expect us to make the playoffs. So this season, his third year, it's been 2 years of rebuilding. I think that the front office, the coaching staff, the players themselves are done with the rebuild. They are going to continue to develop, no doubt about it. But I think that the idea for this season is that they are going to make a push, and they are going to try and be competitive. And I expect them to be competitive. I think that a lot of the Toronto Raptors are being slept on, and there are some circumstances that will allow them to be a little bit more competitive than they otherwise would be. So first of all, when you talk about the Toronto Raptors and making the playoffs, you have to talk about the environment. So the East is not as good as the West, and it hasn't been for a very long time. But this season is a particularly weak Eastern Conference. For example, two of the last teams that made the finals, the Boston Celtics 2 years ago, and this past season, the Indiana Pacers, they are missing their two best players. So Jason Tatum and Tyrese Halliburton are both injured, both the same injury, the ruptured Achilles. And so they'll be missing either, in Tatum's case, for most of the season. I think that he's hinted at a comeback during the season, and Halliburton probably for the entire season. So the East is not going to be as strong as it used to be. There's still two, top dogs in the Eastern Conference. The Cavaliers are relatively unchanged. They are going to be a strong team in the East. And then the New York Knicks, they fired Coach Thibodeau, they hired Coach Mike Brown, but other than that, they're pretty much the same, and I expect them to be a good team as well. Apart from them, the East has a bunch of teams that are kind of jockeying. I think, the Celtics and Indiana, they may not be as good as they once were, but I think they'll be in the mix. Then there's the Orlando Magic. There are the Detroit Pistons. There are the Miami Heat. There are the Toronto Raptors. The Atlanta Hawks also made a couple of moves, and they look like they're going to be challenging for one of the top spots in the East. There are a bunch of teams that are, going to be in the mix. And in this environment, I think that the Toronto Raptors have a shot. They have a shot to make the postseason. They have a shot to be competitive. They have a shot to win, a substantial amount of games. I think that the Toronto Raptors are underrated in the talent department. They have a bunch of good players at every position. So a lot of the time when you look at a team, they'll have, clusters of players playing the same position. And that's where a lot of their talent lies. That's been a problem with the Toronto Raptors over the past couple of years. They have had a lot of forwards, especially in that season when they had Siakam, OG Anunoby, and Scotty Barnes all on the same team. They're all kind of ostensibly power forwards, all kind of having to share the floor together. And then they were light on talent at other positions. Not so this year. There is a good mix of talent and size and shooting and position play off of the bench. They have talent at lots of the positions. So center, forward, wing, and guard, they've got some talent at all of those positions. So that's a good sign. They also plugged one of their major holes from past seasons, which is isolation scoring, half-court offense. They brought in a guy who is going to be able to create in the half court in Brandon Ingram. So that is a big get for them. And not to mention that a lot of the time it comes down to experience. It's not just having talent. You also have to have guys who are, far enough along in their careers that they know what it takes to win a basketball game. Brandon Ingram is in his mid-20s, late 20s. Scotty Barnes is in his mid-20s. The two guys from New York, the former Knicks players, RJ Barrett, Emmanuel Quickley, they're both in their mid-20s. Jakob Poeltl is on the verge of 30. So these are guys who have been around the league. They're not spring chickens. They are pretty much in the beginning or the meat of their primes. So that is a good sign when you want to compete. Also, another thing is that the bench, I think, has had a talent upgrade. They have brought in, obviously, Colin Murray-Boyles, who was their lottery pick, picked 9th overall this past draft. He is going to be playing probably, 10 to 15 minutes a game. So they're going to be allocating minutes to him. And by judging by, what he was able to do in college, what he's been able to do, in the summer league, in camp, what I've been able to glean, I'm pretty sure that he is going to make an impact off of the bench, especially defensively. And then you've got some of the younger players who are looking to make their mark. And this is an interesting part of the team and something that you have to consider. So I think this is going to be a make or break season for a lot of guys on the bench. Grady Dick is entering his 3rd season, Jacoby Walter his 2nd, Ochai Agbaji, I believe this will be his 4th or 5th season. Especially at the wing position, I think that there will be a lot of competition for minutes. And this will be a season where I think certain players will emerge off of the bench through that competition to solidify themselves as one of the players in the rotation. I think that there's a potential for certain players on the bench to fall out of the rotation. And that's just because from a minutes point of view, there are not going to be as many to go around. So if you remember last season, if you had a pulse and you weren't injured and you were on the main roster, you were going to be getting plenty of minutes just because, there was a lot of development time to go around. There were a lot of third stringers. There were a lot of, call-ups that were playing major minutes. So if you were a younger player, you could get pretty much all the minutes that you ever wanted. This season's going to be a lot different. This season, you're going to be competing against other players at your position. You're going to be competing against, knock on wood, healthy starters. So just from that perspective, there's going to be a big chunk of 30 to 35 minutes where that position is going to have a player playing in it. One of the starters is likely going to be playing that much. And then you are going to have to fill in, you're going to have to prove yourself if you're coming off of the bench that you are the guy to fill the remaining minutes at that position. And as a result of that, I think a lot of guys are going to, unfortunately, either fall out of the rotation or, prove themselves, show that they are a guy who can contribute to winning, because that is what it's going to come down to this season. You're not going to be able to, play through all of the mistakes that you were able to in prior seasons. This is kind of a show me season. This is going to be something where either you hit the ground running Or maybe your minutes will get reduced and you'll have to prove it in a smaller amount of time off of the bench. So that is something to keep an eye on. I think especially at the guard positions, there are going to be guys who aren't going to be able to play as many minutes as they were in the past. So for example, there is kind of a bench logjam. Grady Dick, Ochai Agbaji, and Jacoby Walter will all be scrambling to get those wing minutes against one another. I think the additions of CMB and Sandro Mamukelashvili are going to make the minutes a little bit tighter as well. And then obviously Jamal Shed and even specialists like Jamison Battle. Those guys are all going to be competing for minutes off of the bench. So it'll be interesting to see which one of those players off of the bench kind of makes the grade and rises above the rest to gobble up those minutes that the starters don't get. Something to keep an eye on. Lastly, just from an organizational standpoint, Jakob Poeltl during his press conference mentioned pretty much that from the top of the organization, so the front office down to the players, there was really just a message that it's time to lock in and go. Press the button and really just start competing for games. And in that respect, unless the team is really beset by injury, unless there are extenuating circumstances, I think that they're not going to be satisfied with any outcome that isn't a playoff berth. So, for example, if they just miss the playoffs entirely, that would be a disaster. I think that something will have had to have gone wrong if they miss the postseason entirely, and there will probably be some big moves coming, maybe a coaching change, maybe some big trades, even a play-in elimination. So if they make the play-in, but then get eliminated in the play-in, that would be a disappointment as well. I don't think that the Toronto Raptors, especially with the strength of the East, would be satisfied with an outcome like that. I think that the goal is to make the playoffs and start competing in earnest. Now, when it comes down to what I think. So I think that on paper, this team has the talent to be a top 6 team in the Eastern Conference. I think that bad teams generally have positional flaws. They have roster flaws. Maybe they don't have enough size, maybe they don't have enough shooting, maybe they're too small, maybe they have positional overlap. And a lot of the time that is really what sinks a team, is that they just don't have what it takes to compete night in, night out, and they'll get beaten by teams that don't have those flaws. And in that respect, I think that the Toronto Raptors are going to be competitive because they don't really have the roster flaws that a lot of bad teams have. Maybe some teams are too young, etc., etc. I don't think that the Raptors have flaws like that. And as a result, I think that they are going to be able to beat teams that do have those flaws. Younger teams, teams with lots of, gaps in position play where they're not going to be as strong. I think that they have the roster that will be able to exploit those flaws and be able to beat bad teams, especially at home. With that said, I think that they're lacking in terms of the true top-end talent. I like Brandon Ingram. I think that, if the stars aligned, he could be an all-star. I like Scotty Barnes. I am very intrigued by his upside. I think there's a lot of talent on the roster 1 through 8. But they are probably going to struggle like they did last night with the top-end teams in the league. So, for example, like Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray really just put on a show last night and dominated from, the opening tip. And that's going to happen to them this season. There are going to be teams with really amazing players that will be able to just take over games, and the Raptors don't really have that top-end talent. And the concern will be, I think that they can take care of the bad teams. Will they be able to beat the good teams? And I think at home, I think that they will be able to beat good teams. Maybe not every time. Maybe they won't be favored against the really good teams at home, but I think that they'll be able to compete against good teams at home and, might even walk away with a winning record against teams above 500 at home. On the road against good teams, I think they're going to struggle. I don't think that they're there yet. I don't think that they have the top-end talent to be able to go into somebody else's building and walk away with a consistent dub. I think that they're going to, struggle on the road against good teams. Now, the swing here, I think that they're going to take care of business at home against bad teams, and I think that they'll have, a real shot to beat bad teams on the road. I think that the East has enough kind of either bad and mediocre teams that they'll be able to go without long losing stretches. And with the schedule the way it is, last season, the schedule was just atrocious for the Toronto Raptors for multiple reasons. The first of which was that the first half of the season, in terms of schedule, was a nightmare. It was incredibly difficult. They played against most of the over 500 teams and, the good teams in the first half of the season. And then in the back half of the season, they had a bunch of cream puff teams. And that was bad for a number of reasons. So the first one is that it kind of killed the team early and their spirits, kind of crushed them, and it looked like they were on a tank path. And then in the second half of the season, the schedule lightened up and they were able to pick up wins and kind of pull themselves out of the bottom 5 seeding, and they ended up picking 9th. I'm happy with the result. They got CMB, was very high on him prior to the draft. You can watch all my draft videos if you don't believe me. But I think that the schedule this season is a lot better. It's a lot more even. I don't see a stretch of games where it's going to be a nightmare to win any of them. I think it's a relatively balanced schedule. So I think that the Toronto Raptors will be able to get into a rhythm and not have these extended losing streaks that really destroy seasons. And in my opinion, I think that the Raptors will finish at just around 500, maybe a little bit over. That is my expectation. So maybe 43 games, 44, 42, maybe even, 41, 41. I think that those will all be achievable. I expect them to get there. And then I think that with that kind of record, I think that that will be a top 6 record in the Eastern Conference. I think that, there will be a lot of teams hovering around 500 that will be able to make the postseason. So those are my expectations for the Toronto Raptors this season. Let me know if you think any differently. Do you think I'm being a homer? Do you think I'm not being charitable enough with the Toronto Raptors? You can always let me know in the comments or on social media. Love talking to Toronto Raptors fans. But with that finished, we are going to jump into the Raptors game against the Denver Nuggets. It was a good game. The Nuggets kind of just outclassed the Raptors from a talent department with their starters. They were just the better team. Nikola Jokic was perfect from the field. Christian Braun, who is, proven himself in the playoffs as a clutch performer. He had a really good game. He didn't miss a shot either. The Toronto Raptors defense, especially from the starters, just kind of wasn't up to snuff. The mixed bench lineups and the bench lineups brought the Raptors back into the game, and there were a couple of very nice performances from the Toronto Raptors. So we're going to do what I usually do, which is discuss the Toronto Raptors starting lineup first, and I will go in order from who had the best game to who I thought played the worst. And we're going to start this one off. So the first star goes to RJ Barrett. RJ Barrett had a really good game. Really loved what I saw from him. He finished with 19 points on 7 of 12 shooting, so he's very efficient. He was 3 of 6 from 3, which is really nice to see. His shot is still a little slow, but he was able to, get it off with confidence. And he's taking the shots that I like to see him take, which are spot-up shots, some from the corner, some from above the arc, catching and just confidently shooting the ball within the flow of the offense. Not a ton of off-the-dribble shots. He did a lot of closeout attacks as well. He had a couple of nice plays off of the dribble where he was able to get into the paint and hook his team up with really nice passes. So he finished with 3 assists, but it felt like more than that. It felt like he was making really nice passes. He had an amazing dime to Brandon Ingram, who is able to finish inside. He had just a really nice game. The defense, it wasn't great. I don't think anybody in the starting lineup really played amazing defense. I think Scottie played good defense, but he was kind of the lone standout on the defensive end. I think there were a lot of issues guarding, especially the Denver Nuggets pick and roll, which is not a surprise. They've got 2 very good pick and roll. The best pick and roll big man of all time, Nikola Jokic, and then Jamal Murray, who had a really solid game playing off of Jokic and playing pick and roll with him. So it's not all on RJ, but I just thought I'd mention that. I thought he was the best player on the floor for the Toronto Raptors last night, and certainly the best in the starting lineup. So next up, Brandon Ingram, I think, had the second best game. So everybody in the starting lineup played around 20 minutes. Brandon Ingram played the most out of that group with 22 minutes, and he had just a effortless 19 points. You say effortless, but it's just so smooth that it doesn't look like he has to exert himself overly in order to get to his spots and take good looking shots. And the process was on full display. I've been watching Brandon Ingram for a while now, and he really does have a lot of polish to his game. He really does have a strong sense of how to attack a defense. He has a really nice crossover dribble. His pump fakes were looking very good. He caught a bunch of players on pump fakes. He went to the line 7 times in 22 minutes. He got Cam Johnson in foul trouble early. He hit a catch and shoot 3, which was nice to see. 19 points on 50% shooting. He was 1 of 3 from 3. He had 7 free throws, made 6 of them. 1 rebound, 2 assists, and only 1 turnover in just 22 minutes. Yeah, just a really nice looking performance. And he was playing off of the ball a lot of the time, which was good. He made a couple of really nice off-ball reads, especially one, obviously involving RJ Barrett, which I've mentioned already, but he also caught a really nice dime from Sandro Mamukelashvili, where he just streaked to the basket off of the ball, caught it in space, and was able to finish at the rim. Just a really nice performance. On defense, it looked like he was trying. It looked like he was buying in. He was rotating pretty well. They still have him on some of the weaker players on the court, so guarding mostly spot-up shooters, but he did have a couple of nice plays where he was able to rotate and, get a deflection or make a good rotation to pick up, to play some help defense. So I was kind of happy, but I'm going to have to see more and really kind of drill down on the tape with him. Next up, we'll go to Emmanuel Quickley. I think Emmanuel Quickley had an underrated game, sort of an under-the-radar game. He finished with 8 points on 3 of 6 shooting. He was 1 of 3 from 3, 1 of 2 from the free throw line. He had 3 assists, 1 steal in 20 minutes. So I think that he was being unselfish. I think that he was handling the ball just the right amount. He was, passing it to Brandon, passing it to RJ. Scotty Barnes, there was a moment when I think that he could have fed the post. I want to see Scotty get more post-ups this year. I think that that's where he should be getting the ball, especially this season when there's Brandon Ingram on the perimeter. And he didn't feed him in that spot. I would have liked to see that. I thought defensively he was, doing a decent job running around the screens, but it just wasn't as effective as you need to be against a pick and roll duo as deadly as Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic. So, a bit more to be desired. But on the offensive end, I think that he picked his spots well. He didn't dominate the ball. He shot pretty well. He made some nice cuts. He made some nice drives and, made some nice passes, 3 assists in 20 minutes. That's not bad. I thought he had an okay game. Next up, we'll go to Jonathan Mobo. Jonathan Mobo was given the tough task. He and Scotty Barnes were kind of taking turns guarding Nikola Jokic in the post, and he is just way too small to be guarding Jokic inside there. So they were trying to front in the post. They were trying to, blow up the pick and roll. They were trying to keep the ball, doubling him off of the ball. They were trying to keep the ball out of Jokic's hands, and in a way, they did a good job there. There was a lot of switching involved. Of course, if you don't have a big, this game, they didn't have Jakob Poeltl. He was out with, back soreness. And so Mobo had to step in, and they were running that no center style where they try and play on the perimeter and generate steals and sort of force the ball out of Jokic's hands. And in that respect, I think he did an okay job. On offense, he was okay, 50% from the field. There was a very nice possession where he was able to handle the ball in transition, and he went to the rim and had a really nice step-through move where he was able to finish with a scoop shot. That's a nice thing to see from him because he struggled finishing in the past. He had a nice alley-oop dunk care of, I believe it was RJ Barrett. So he had a couple of nice possessions, 2 steals. That's really good. That's a result of that defense that I was mentioning. So yeah, he had an okay game. Last on the list, unfortunately, was Scotty Barnes. I've been very pro Scotty in the offseason. I think that this could be a breakout season. Again, it's an odd year. He has tended to look a lot better in those odd years than in the even years. He made the All-Star game 2 seasons ago. He had Rookie of the Year in his first season. Now it's his 5th season. So, a little superstition there. But he had a really kind of forgettable game on the offensive end. He was just downright poor on offense. On defense, he was quite good, and in fact, probably the best defender in the starting lineup. But on offense, it's just incredibly difficult to overlook the ways in which he struggled. So I think, first of all, he didn't look that athletic. He had a couple of possessions where he caught the ball going to the rim and just didn't have the extra sort of the leaping ability that you would hope in order to finish above smaller defenders. He also settled a little bit on the perimeter for jump shots. He was 0 of 6 from the field, so he didn't make any shots from the field. He was 1 of 2 from the free throw line. He did have 4 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 steals, and only 1 turnover. So yeah, he did bring it on the defensive end, and he was looking to facilitate this game. But this was a disappointing game. I expected more from him. I expect, especially because Aaron Gordon did not play this game, and they are running Nikola Jokic, who is not a good defender on the interior. He's, very strong and bulky, and he can kind of body you out of the paint, but you can finish around him, you can finish over him, you can, if he's out on the perimeter in any capacity, you can blow right past him. CMB did that, but I was just, he was not aggressive enough going to the rim, and when he did go to the rim, it didn't seem like he had a lot of pep in his step. He was not looking overly athletic, so want to see more from him in that department. Okay, now we're going to get to the bench. There were a couple of really standout performances, but obviously, the best player off the bench, and perhaps even the best Raptor, I think it was between him and RJ, Sandro Mamukelashvili. And so, just to start off with Mamu, I was just very frustrated with the commentator team. So Matt Devlin, Jack Armstrong, even Kayla Gray did not do a good job pronouncing his last name. And I've had, some issues pronouncing people's last names, but with Mamu, his name is phonetic, like Sandro, and just read the letters. Mamukelashvili. Mamukelashvili. It's a mouthful, but you should be able to say it. So, let's get on it, especially Jack. He didn't even make an attempt, and Matt Devlin was just saying the name, like confidently saying Mamukelashvili, just like, let's, I know it's preseason for everybody, but next game, come on guys, let's get it together. He had a great game. 15 points on 6 of 8 shooting. He was 3 of 5 from 3, 6 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals, and 0 turnovers in 22 minutes. And he was the spark plug off of the bench. He really got the game close. His shot is nice and quick. I really like that. He's able to get it off. It's not like a big man's shooting stroke where you see a lot of these bigs. Sometimes even you can be accurate with a slower shot. Al Horford had that slower release and he was pretty accurate with it. Sandro, his release is pretty quick, especially for a big. And he was able to shoot it. And then when they started closing out to him, he made a lot of really nice plays off of the dribble. And then when he got run off of the 3-point line, he would put the ball on the floor and made some really nice plays. So he was able to score off of the dribble, but more than that, he was able to make nice reads off of the dribble. He dribbles with his head up. He's able to catch people who are making good cuts. Just looked like a really strong offensive player for the Toronto Raptors off of the bench, especially if he has that 3-point shot going. That will be huge. And I think that he and Jamal Shed are going to be a really nice pairing off of the bench. Jamal Shed is a nice pick and roll operator, and Mamu is going to be a really good weapon for him to find on kickouts. And I think that the synergy was on display last night. Both of them had really good games, and I was just very happy with what I was seeing from Sandro. And an underrated thing about him, and this has always been the case, it was the case with the Spurs and with the Georgia national team, he's a good rebounder. So that is a big thing. A lot of the time with stretch bigs and, some of the skill bigs, especially out of Europe, they don't board very well. They're maybe a little softer. They're not, they don't have the alarm bell in their head thinking about how they're going to get to the ball when a shot goes up. He definitely has that. And he finished with 6 rebounds in 22 minutes. And I know that he's not like a traditional center. He's not a basket or rim protecting center, but they're going to be playing him at the 5 this season. That has been the plan the whole time when they signed him. Darko has talked about it. So he will be playing at the 5. And they're going to be playing a different type of defense than a 5 usually plays. So usually you try and funnel attacking players towards the help defense, towards the center. He's going to be playing a little bit further away from the basket, which is kind of what I think you should do with him. And they're going to be trying to put pressure on the ball and play that sort of aggressive style of defense where you can play without a traditional 5. But even with that type of defense, you still need to get possessions. You still need to be on the boards and end a possession with a rebound. And from that perspective, he's going to be able to do that. He has always been a good rebounder per 36. He is like right at 10 rebounds per game, which is like, that is good. So I just wanted to point that out because that is an important thing that he brings to the table that some other stretch bigs don't. Next up, we'll talk Jamal Shead. I think Jamal Shead had a really nice game. He had 11 points on 4 of 8 shooting. He was 1 of 4 from 3. He was 2 of 3 from the line. 5 assists, 1 rebound, 1 steal, and he was able to do his, normal thing of forcing the other team into an offensive foul and created a turnover that way. I like Jamal Shead. I've been a fan of his game for a while now. I think that he has really good game sense, and I trust him with the ball in his hands. Of course, he needs to work on scoring. He needs to work on his shooting. But I think when you put the ball in his hands in the second unit, he's going to make the offense flow. He's going to make the right decision. And now he has a good pick and roll partner to work with, maybe even 2 with Colin Murray-Boyles. I don't think that Colin Murray-Boyles had an incredible game, but he did have a pretty good game, and he had to leave early in the first half with a twisted ankle, but he did come back in the second half. He was only 2 of 7 from the field, but he did have a couple of nice moments. So his first bucket, unofficial, preseason bucket, came against Nikola Jokic, who was guarding him on the perimeter, and CMB looked at him and he said, "You can't stay with me," and he just blew right past him and made a layup. He also had a really nice drive where he had an up and under layup, very pretty, off glass, went in. His defense is as advertised, 3 rebounds, 1 assist, 0 steals, 0 blocks, but just a couple of really nice possessions where he's just, he knows where to be on the floor. So I thought I'd mention him. I think that this wasn't exactly the best showcase of his abilities. I think that he'll have better moments in future games, but I did want to mention him. And then there's the kind of trifecta, and we'll talk about the 3 guys here. I mentioned about the expectations. These are the 3 guys that are going to be battling for those backup wing minutes. So Ochai Agbaji, Grady Dick, and Jacoby Walter. We'll start with the best of the 3. I think that Ochai Agbaji had the best of those 3. He was 3 of 4 from the field. He had 7 points. He was a plus 10 on the game, 1 of 2 from the free throw line, 2 rebounds, 1 turnover. And I think he played solid defense. I think that he looked very athletic. He was going to the rim, with a purpose. He was finishing some tough looks. I just kind of feel confident when he's out there that he is going to play his role and do it well. So I like what he brings to the table. He played 15 minutes that game, and he looked like one of the better bench contributors. Same with Jacoby Walter. Jacoby Walter had a lot of really nice plays. He was only 2 of 5 from the field, and he missed both of the 3s he took, and he only was 1 of 3 from the free throw line. So in that respect, he wasn't amazing, but on defense, he was great. He and CMB did a really good job blowing up the Nuggets pick and rolls. Like, even when it was Jokic and Jamal Murray, they were able to really guard that play well, and Jacoby came up with a steal off of those two of the best pick and roll, probably one of the best pick and roll pairings ever, and they did a really good job covering that play. I think it was a solid night from him, even though he only had 5 points on 5 shots. I think that just what I was able to see from him, especially on the defensive end, just how he looks on the offensive end, I'm digging what I'm seeing from him, and I really liked what he was able to do down the stretch last season, so I think he's building off of that. Last in this one, unfortunately, was Grady Dick. He had a pretty poor game, just straight up not a good game. He had 5 points on 6 shots. He missed a whole bunch of 3s. He was 1 of 4 from 3, 2 of 2 from the line. He had a couple of, decent drives where he was able to get fouled and get to the rim. But just, the efficiency was not there. The shooting was not there. The defense was poor. He fouled a lot. He had 5 fouls. He had 3 turnovers. Just not a good game, and not what you want to see, because I think that this is kind of a prove-it season for him. He has been very inconsistent over his career, and this season is kind of where the rubber meets the road. You want to see, this guy was drafted with a lottery pick. You want to be able to see that he can be a consistent contributor on a team that's looking to compete. There were a couple of other players, Jamison Battle, Chucky Hepburn, Olivier Sarr, AJ Lawson played, Elijah Martin played. I did like Elijah Martin's aggressiveness, and he had 4 rebounds in 5 minutes. Did like to see that, but just not a ton of production from the third stringers. In all, not a bad game to watch. The game ended up pretty close, 112 to 108. At the end of the game, there was the classic Raptors possession where they get a whole bunch of offensive rebounds but just miss every single shot. I like the second stringers. I like the bench. I like their contributions. Mamu was very good. RJ Barrett looked like a breath of fresh air. He was making a lot of really good decisions. Brandon Ingram is as advertised, very smooth, was getting his shot off through strong contests. He was drawing the top defensive assignment, Cam Johnson, and he got him twice right off of the bat, got him to commit on a pump fake and drew 2 fouls on him really early. And that kind of is something that you want to see. Hasn't been a lot of Raptors that have been able to do that, have had the skill to be able to go out there and take on a top defender and make them look silly. And I think that he is going to be a very important piece for the Raptors moving forward this season. So the Toronto Raptors will be back at it again on Wednesday. Tomorrow at 10 o'clock, they will be playing against the Sacramento Kings in their building. That should be a fun one to watch. The Kings, I don't think, are going to be that good this year. They've kind of really screwed up that nice run that they had a couple of years ago. They have a bunch of players that don't really fit very well together, so that'll be an interesting contest because it's in their building. I'd like to see them come away with a win there. And yeah, I mean, the preseason has begun. The Toronto Raptors are back. I'm so happy that they're back and I'm able to start covering them again. I hope you guys are as excited as I am. I hope you appreciate that this is back. We're back doing this. I'm going to be releasing a video after every game. And if you want to keep up to date, you want to ask me questions, you want to get involved with like a really good Raptors community, I've created a Raptors Report Discord. I will leave the link in the description. You should join the Discord. You can talk to me, you can talk to Steve, you can talk to, other committed Raptors fans. You can give suggestions on this episode. Yeah, I'd love to see you guys there. Thank you for watching this video. Please hit the subscribe button. Please hit the notification button. Let the algorithm know that this is content that other Toronto Raptors fans want to watch. And as always, thank you for tuning into Raptors Report, your source for in-depth Raptors content.